The broadcast is now starting.
Thank you for joining us. This is a webinar that is scheduled to last for 30 minutes. And the topic of it is yacht donation, how to use it in a seller's market. My name is Jorge Mawat, and I manage the marketing for the AMikids Yacht Donation Program. I also do our marine education initiatives, and I am the dive safety officer for the company. I would like to introduce you to Roger Hurd now. Roger Hurd is a facilitator of donation for AMikids. He works with yacht brokers, yacht owners, and their financial advisors to make an informed decision relative to yacht donations. He's a former yacht broker and a U.S. Navy veteran. Roger has numerous years of experience in the marine industry and can guide you to make an informed decision that fits your client's needs. Like I said earlier, we have a very special guest today, Mr. Jeff Stanley. Many of you might already know him. Jeff started his yacht brokerage career in 1980, soon after graduating college. Starting out as a new boat dealer gave him a constant stream of leads that was able to propel him into mainstream brokerage sales, where he is still very active 40 years later. Since year 2000, Jeff has been at the helm of Gilman Yachts, where he maintains a collection of 25 to 30 listings at all times, and he concentrates in power yachts or between 40 and 120 feet. Jeff is also the number one individual broker in terms of number of yacht donations for AMikids. Since 2015, Jeff has facilitated a total of 6 contributions to our organization, for which we're very thankful. Roger and Jeff and I will conduct this webinar together, and I hope it feels more like a conversation than anything else. Post any questions or comments in the question section as we go along.
Thanks, Jorge, and welcome, Jeff, and everybody. You know, what I'd like to tell people, especially donors, about AMikids is that we're the real deal. We've been here last year, 2019, we celebrated 50 years of helping kids. So we're not some fly-by-night organization that does the donation concept just to make some money on the side. This is a very, very important component to our overall legacy of helping kids. We have a staff of 7 people full-time that work in the donations, from project managers, facilitators, office people, marine program managers like Jorge. So it's a very important program to the overall success of the organization, and the proceeds that we derive from the sale and lease of these boats goes to support the schools, which is currently about 44 schools in 10 states, helping troubled teenagers. And since 1969, I think that number is actually greater than 140,000 now. Well, the yacht donation is basically what we have found more of a convenience than anything to our donors. And whether it be a good market or a troubled market, donors are able to easily divest themselves of the vessel. There's a couple of different programs, what boats can be used for, but by and large, it's what we call material improved. So the donator gets an appraisal on the boat, and they use that appraisal for the basis of their tax write-off. The organization, AMikids, receives the donation, and we invest our own money to materially improve the vessel, make it more marketable. And then the broker, in this case, Jeff, finds a lessee for us, and they enter into a standard operating lease that is just akin to leasing a car, with a down payment, 3 years of payments, and then they can exercise an option at the end of 3 years and pay a balloon payment and walk away with the title. It's a very, very good concept that allows people to use our money, especially without any tax. It's a very, very good program.
That's a high level of our charity in what we do. Now we want to jump into a little bit about how to use yacht donation in a seller's market. Roger will conduct the talking points, and we'll have the expertise and experience of Jeff. First boat in the list is the most recent one.
This is 87-foot fed ship that is quite an interesting story that Jeff has in his relationship with the boat and the owners over a long period of time. And the interesting thing about this is that I was involved in discussions with at least 3, maybe 4 different brokerage firms on this boat over a course of 3 years before, they came to Jeff and said, we need you to help us with this boat. So I'll let Jeff explain, what happened with it.
Well, I sold the boat to the family who donated to AMI, I think it was 26 years ago. And very wealthy family, very private family. They used the boat just personally, kept it in the same slip that it was in when I sold it to them, had the same captain up till a year or so before the owner passed. And when the owner passed, the estate went hunting for a broker. I was asked to submit my recommendation of what to ask for the boat, what it might sell for, and I gave him what I thought was a reasonable price. Someone else gave him a price of double that. So, and that was basically based on Patriot, the only other sister ship to this boat, which also was donated to AMI, not by me, but donated, leased, and eventually turned over to the current owner. But that boat had a huge number of dollars spent on the improvements that this one was still largely original. Nice boat, in good shape, but pretty much as it left Fedship. So the number that the other brokers assigned to it was very high. It lent itself well to donation, but it wasn't realistic. Let's face it, this is not a 40-knot Viking. It's a 23-knot Fedship, and they're a different buyer. So the price had to come down to seek its own level, and eventually I ended up with the listing. And as Roger said, everybody who had the listing along the way had pitched donation because it's a perfect boat for that. It's got a high intrinsic value that just works well for donation. But there came a point when the family decided it was time to donate the boat. It went very quickly when it decided to go, and because the boat sat for a couple of years, it was ready for all the material improvements that AMI customarily and actually are required by the IRS to add to the boat. We just finished that phase, and there were 3 showings on the boat today. There's a lot of activity on the boat, and the situation suited this seller, the donation situation suited this seller perfectly. It wasn't a need for money for a large tax write-off. It was just a need to close the chapter and have the boat go away. Sorry, it was worked out very well for them, and I think in the end it's going to work out very well for AMI and whoever gets a chance to lease the boat.
Yeah,
and of course the 2 brokers involved.
Yeah, and it amazes me sometimes, that the owner of a boat can be very swayed by a broker about how much they can tell them they can get for the boat, when in reality, the market just won't bear that. And in this case, as you said, somebody else said, I can get a lot more money for the boat. So it languished on the market with drop after drop after drop in price until they realized that, okay, Jeff was right. Let's go back to Jeff. In the very beginning, telling an owner, we have some, let me digress a little bit. We have some brokers who, as part of their presentation to take a listing, actually talk to the brokers about donation in the beginning. It says, here are your options. Sell, trade, donate are 3 of those options. And let me tell you a little bit about donation in case it suits your need. You never know when somebody's life is going to change. They just got a huge tax capital gains hit, or it's somebody in the family died, and you just never know what it is unless you keep in contact. And if they don't have that option, explained to them, then they don't know anything about it. So this was a great option in the beginning. Unfortunately, it got lost in a lot of dialogue until they went back to Jeff and, here's what they could do. An interesting one that we have, Jeff, was, we don't have the picture on here, but of the Donzi, and how that one happened. And I always tell that to brokers because it's such a good story. You want to relate that one about Bill?
Yeah, a client who I've had from the early 80s and sold him several boats over the years. And they had their 72 Donzi with a rather unrealistic price, but I sold them a 64 Viking one boat show. And very soon, it was a Lauderdale boat show, so it was November. Very soon after, we were in talks with Roger donating the boat because they had room. They have owned two houses, the boats were together, but the wife of the owner or co-owner was not interested in seeing the boat anymore. And we just made it work. She said, get rid of that boat. And I said, well, I can get rid of it tomorrow if we do A, B, and C. And they were of the wherewithal and income level to take advantage of the donation. And they were very happy. And something else I'd like to add, the boat on the screen is a 65 Viking Princess. That man, I sold him after this donation I'm not going to say the boat, I guess, but a similar sized boat of a brand he had before and wanted another of. And he has put a absolute huge amount of money into the boat. He's over improved it. I had a conversation the other day. I said, I just don't know what we're going to do when it comes time to sell it. And he says, I do. I'm going to give it to AMI. And Roger, that's a quote.
Thank you.
So
Good.
I guess he didn't have to worry about how much he was putting in it. It is not the first boat he's donated, and for some people, it just works.
Sorry.
The next one here, CT was the owner of this boat, and it was purely about convenience for him, as well as I think he really just didn't want to invest any more money in the boat. We had to do a lot of work to it, but it turned out to be a great project for us and very good for the organization. But in speaking with the donor after that, he had said to me, if I knew how easy it was to donate a boat and get a tax write-off, I would have donated every boat I ever had when I'm done with it. And he even, after this boat, he got another one and tried to donate that. Unfortunately, that one didn't work out for us. There were some complications, but he did donate to another organization. So he was sold on donation from this one, right, Jeff?
That's correct. And I'm trying to sell another boat, but I'm not successful so far. We may not have a third repeat on this one.
Okay. CT's a good guy. I like him. So, but by donating, some of the talking points are eliminating the holding cost, because the longer it sits there, the more money they're going to put into it, keeping it up. And if they don't, then it just goes down and down and down in the market. So faster that they can get rid of it. It's just like in sales when he said, would you take 6 months from now the offer I'm giving you today? Well, the answer is generally yes, because in 6 months, it's not worth as much as it was today. So the same thing applies to an owner. Is that, listen, if I can get you a good, fair write-off on this, and you're alleviated of your commissions, of your holding cost, everything that goes along with the boat, wouldn't that be perfect for you? Because tax write-off is good as cash if you're in that income bracket, right, Jeff?
That's right. We have a expression around the office, holding out for less.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a question from Andrew. He says, how many years does a donor have to use the write-off? And then I would add to that question a little bit about how does the tax write-off component work, and how do you get to the amount or the number that's going to determine that tax benefit? Roger?
Well, the write-off is good to use for up to 5 years. And of course, they'd have to check with their CPA or financial advisor to find out that very quickly is much beneficial so that they can move on. Now, The appraisal has to come from a qualified appraiser. There are lots of surveyors out there that will do surveys for pre-sale or for insurance. And we'll never tell you who to use. We have to do that at arm's length. People in the business, such as Jeff, know getting the right appraisal.
Once you've been through it a few times, they basically take the replacement cost, add improvements, and use a IRS approved depreciation scale.
Which is one of the things that we constantly talk about donation. The donation can isolate or protect the donor from whatever the market is doing. Even if seller market, buyer market, the donation process isolates the donor from there, and the number is just what the appraisal will come up with.
Jorge, let me interrupt you
Yep.
there for a second. I'd like Jeff's opinion on this. I know you just got off an IYBA panel. So, you know, we've gone from primarily a buyer's market to a seller's market, but that seller market is going to turn back as inventory is getting eaten up and choice boats are gone. Is that a good assumption, Jeff, or is I incorrect?
No, it's a good assumption, but also, you know, the boat that fits donation, I mean, it's oftentimes a little bit of a, not a one-off necessarily like the Fed ship, but it's the guy who needs to donate the boat has probably got an unusual boat. The person like CT who donated this Hatteras, I mean, at any given time when he donated this boat, there was probably a couple dozen sister ships on the market. So it was then a buyer's market. It worked for him. The Fed ship worked for the owner in what I would call a seller's market.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
good point.
Here's another question. It says, what about sailboats? Do you take boats that are not running?
Well, both of those are problematic, but not absolute no's. It really depends on the boat. Sailboats are a very, very difficult market for us. We have not had tremendous amount of luck over the years, but we take each boat on a case-by-case basis. Depends on the age of the boat, the pedigree, what the market's like for that. And as far as non-running boats, we'll enter into discussions with owners on a non-running boat and see if it's something that we can make work. For some of them, it's the right thing to do. We've had people replace engines, gensets. It really depends on the boat.
I think it's safe to say, though, at AMI, it's not a good place to dump your junk.
No.
You deal in quality boats, and if they need something, you know, like engine rebuilds, doesn't make it a bad boat. It makes it a good boat when it's done.
Yeah. Sometimes a boat that's not running but is a good pitch for donation. Instead of investing time and money into fixing it, they have just donated to us, and we've taken care of it. And like Jeff said, it's not a junk charity. It's we specialize in highly valuable, highly marketable boats, and I think that we've created a reputation in that arena. We have a question from Mark. Does AMI operate outside of Florida?
Yeah, we take boats all over the country. We've got boats in California right now. We've taken them Seattle, all over the Northeast. We're headquarters out of Florida, and we are tax exempt in Florida, which means if somebody leases a boat and registers it in Florida, they are tax exempt, no sales tax. But if it's somewhere else, they're subject to the local rules and regulations and laws. But yes, we operate all over the country.
You could really say that the yacht donation program is national, because we operate in all major yachting markets anywhere in the country. I don't have more questions here. I don't know if anyone would like to ask a question. If not, and my question for you, Jeff, would be what would be advice that you would give to a broker who's just getting into donation? about the process, about AMI, what would be your expert tip for some of our audience?
Yeah, I think it's important to know what's going to happen to the boat. Is it going to be used in a program, or is it going to be disposed of by a lease, which is what's done with most of their boats? And where does the lease money go? Is it, did it buy a new motorhome for the one of the principals of the lease company, or is it going to a school, or is it 40 or 50 schools? It's a real honest a distribution of wealth, and that's what it's really about. This is allowed by the IRS. It's encouraged by the IRS for people with wealth to let money trickle down to needed programs that basically the government doesn't have to fund. So it's kind of a feel-good thing that your money, or your boat, and the owner's value of that boat has gone to something good. That's my thought. Figure out where you're.
Yeah, very well put, Jeff. And for you as a broker too, the people listening, is that when you're working with an owner for a year or two trying to sell their boat, only for that boat to go to somebody else because you can't sell it, you put a lot of time and effort and marketing and what have you into no commission to bring up or have that talk with the owner, because it's good for him, it's good for you, it's good for us, and it's good for the kids. It's a win-win for everybody.
On our listing agreements, which we use an IYBA listing agreement, the donation of a yacht is covered under one of the paragraphs. And I always have a conversation with someone on the way in, because I think if you bring up donation when you get your cancellation letter for your listing, it's probably not going to go as well. That if you've on the very onset said, we're going to try and sell it, and we're going to try and sell it for all the money, but just so you know, if you ever want to talk about an immediate out for the boat, that we have that availability of a safe and immediate way to dispose of your boat.
Very well, absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you. We call it planting a seed and having a donation as your plan B. A lot of wisdom in your words, Jeff. We're on the hour. I want to thank you, Jeff, again for participating with us. I think this has been really enriching. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Roger. We like Roger said a minute ago, we work every deal and every broker one by one on a case by case basis, and we're here to help you succeed and help you make that plan B or let that seed grow. So thank you very much. I hope to see some of you in a next webinar. Thank you.